We are a little split on this because even though we both picked Anders, I think that Anders won the fight at the end of the day. And I feel like you think that Junyong Park did just enough to squeak out the victory. Now, this is another one of those marred in controversy type situations, brother. But before we do anything, let's take a quick look at the MMA decisions. So, MMA decisions, brother. We have two. This is not too many scores, right? We have 2, 4, 6, 8, probably like 12 scores right here. 2 of them go for Junyong Park. The rest of them go for Eryk Anders. 29-28 for Anders or 29-28 for Junyong Park. And when we look at statistics, we see that in this fight, so clearly, Junyong Park, did he outland Eryk Anders? Absolutely. He did it in every single round. Literally every single round, he outstruck him, right? But we look at an interesting stat, one that you don't really see from Eryk Anders often, and you're going to look at takedown attempts. 24 takedown attempts by Eryk Anders. Only landed 3 of them, but a lot of his takedown attempts weren't necessarily to get you to the ground. It was to close the distance, wrap you up, clinch you up, and get you on the cage and hold you there. Very similarly to what Holly Holm did to Ketlin Vieira the whole entire fight. Now, only 4 minutes and 45 4 minutes and 45 seconds of control time, for Eryk Anders. But this just goes into what criteria are we scoring in the fight? Is it just I'm off my back foot countering the whole time? I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm not able to be where I want to be in the fight. Or is it I'm controlling the fight, I'm putting the fighter where I want them to? Yeah, I'm getting hit with little pot shots here, these little just pot shots in the clinch or whatever. A couple big shots by Junyong Park out in distance, right? He did outland him in distance, but who gets the edge, man? The guy dictating where the fight's going, or the guy who's just reacting to where the fight's going?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I feel like the big thing here, there should be a little bit more or not coercion, cohesive, cohesive,
Consistency?
consistency. That's
Yeah,
another word.
maybe.
Cohesiveness. That's the word I was looking for. About how the judging goes for the night, because this is one of those ones where if Holly Holmes saw what was happening, then she goes, "Okay, I guess we're not clinching up and putting him up against the fence because it didn't work in the Anders fight. He lost, so damn." But overall, though, it usually does, which is a weird thing. So we were talking about this before, where the judges were saying you don't get points for defense. You don't get points for stopping a takedown.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe you should, because you stopped 21 takedowns. Pretty impressive. But at the same point, you're right, because they weren't all takedowns necessarily meant to get you to the ground, which does have a little bit more weight in the point system in my book. A guy gets hands clasped, behind your hips, tries to dump you and you sprawl on him. That's pretty impressive compared to somebody who just, fakes an ankle pick and then you just kind of scoot your leg back, So I think points in my book have to go to the guy that's making the fight his own. You know what I'm saying? That's controlling things, saying, I'm going to do this. Okay, you did this. I'm going to do this now. You did this. I'm going to do this now. The guy leading the dance, I think, in my book, gets more points and passes the eye test, if you will. Do you agree, or you think you're different?
Well, that's the thing. On the eye test, I think Anders won. Now, when you really dive into the stats and you look at it, you're like, well, on paper, Junyong Park clearly won this fight. Like, on paper, he clearly wins it. But that's the kind of the whole thing, is when you're just kind of watching and you're seeing, I'm on skates, I'm rocking backwards the whole time, I'm hitting you with a couple of shots, but I don't feel comfortable versus, like I said, man, I don't know, man. But Junyong Park, the Iron Turtle, this is one thing that we did say on the pre-show. We said Eryk Anders, money line, that's the way we should go, but the safest pick on the night is the Junyong Park decision victory at plus 100 on a prop. So even though we hit on that one, we still didn't, because we ended up picking Anders. But it's tough because is this a robbery? No. The Holly Holm fight, much more if something you can consider a robbery. This one, Eryk Anders just needed to do more on the feet. So do you think, because this is the question that I have for you, even though a lot of people thought Anders won the fight, I didn't like the approach that he took to the fight. I thought he fought like a Vladimir Klitschko, where he's going to jab, straight, clinch. Jab, straight, clinch, wrench, wash, repeat. Every single time. Round 1, 2, and 3. I didn't like that approach. I thought that that's not an effective approach for him. That wasn't the violent your boy that we normally see. Is he more well-suited to fight at light heavyweight given the way that he's fighting these days? Because he looks slow, big, powerful, all that good stuff, but he looked a step slow. And I felt like Junyong Park was just too quick, too much volume for him. What do you think?
Yeah, he looked slow, and he looked like eventually he was fatiguing in there, So it looks like the weight cut hurt him a little bit, had a little negative effect there, because if you are going to take that approach of, the 1, the 2, and then clinch up, Vladimir Klitschko or even Eryk Anders-esque, I think you need to do that through the entire fight, not just those first 2 rounds, because that's really where Junyong Park started running away with it. because he was a little bit faster, a little bit fresher, a little bit more on the ball in that third round. And I think that's really what gave him the win in the eyes of the judges. Whether you think rounds 1 and 2 were close or not, I think that third round is really where Junyong Park ran away with it. And that's the danger of once you're doing those things, once you're clinching up, you're doing the 24 takedowns, you're doing all this stuff, you're tired. You're really gasping for breath right there. Where the other guy, this is his weight class. He is the smaller guy. He's the faster guy. He has a little bit quickness on you, and he's able to stay motivated through the finish line and not cut halfway short or 2/3 of the way short. So, yeah, I think Eryk Anders best suited for that 205 because when he's there, man, he's big, he's hitting heavy, he has a lot of power, and he has a little bit more gas tank. Yeah. Gas tank's always an issue for Anders, but a little bit more gas tank. You feel me?
Yeah, no, I absolutely feel you. I thought that was a pretty right-on assessment, a pretty accurate assessment of the how I feel about Eryk Anders right now and where he should be fighting at, and basically the performance that took place. But the last question I have regarding this fight is that do you think that we're putting a little bit too much stock into fight-ready MMA right now? Kind of the same way that at one point people would put into American Top Team or Sanford MMA. They'd be like, oh, you're fighting at the super camp. Like, you're going to win because look at where you fight at. You know what I mean? It felt like the approach was like a Henry Cejudo, like, we're going to make you change the way you fight. And I think that if Eryk Anders would have fought more aggressively the way that he normally fights, he could have had a lot more success because he fought Darren Stewart kind of in a similar way, but in a more violent way. And this one, I just felt like it wasn't violent. So, yeah, what do you think about fight-ready MMA?
Yeah, I agree with you. And what makes me think of, there's this thing Uncle Chael always talks about where in wrestling and in all sports, you get drafted or you get, you get recruited to college, and you get recruited because you're so good at X, Y, and Z, whatever it is your sport at. And then you go there and that coach wants to change you and make you fight like he fights, or make you play like he likes to play, or whatever the case may be. I kind of think that's what's going on right there with the fight ready camp. Because if you're a good wrestler, man, Cejudo is going to take you to the next level. But if you're not, we're going to try to change you to make you a good wrestler and kind of wonk everything up in your mind, man. Not really get you going to where you were. And that's where I really think the good coaches shine. They make you a better version of yourself and sharpen your techniques while getting the rest of the tool belt up to par. You're not necessarily completely flipping the switch. And I think that's really what's happening, especially in the Korean zombie fight that they just had as well. Same thing, flip the script, and it doesn't work out in your favor. You got to do what gets you to the dance, man.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't have said that better myself. I think that, an apt coach, the mark of a really well suited coach, I guess you could say, is one who elevates his fighter, not one who says you have to fight the way that I fight. So, yeah, you hit that one on the head, man.